All right. So this topic that I want to talk about this week is touchy for some. I'm sure the comments are going to go crazy no matter where I post this, but uh, it needs to be said. And I'm not the first one to say it. I'm just going to remind everybody that it needs to be said because we got to remind everybody every once in a while of something, right? And your brand, your personal brand, is not the same as your company's brand, and your company's brand is not you. You guys are we're two separate entities, and it has to be said. So that does not mean that when you work for a company, that just because you put the shirt on and everything else, that you are like you're that brand, right? You're your own individual. You're your own person, and your company is its own entity in and of itself, right? Doesn't mean I don't love my company. Doesn't mean I don't want to work for my company. Doesn't mean that you don't like your company. You don't want to work for your company. It's not what I'm saying. But they're two separate things, and realize and identify with it, right? And so when you look at that and you're looking at how you're positioning your content, how you're positioning things, there's some times where I'm going to talk about a community, and I'm not talking on behalf of my company, and you shouldn't either. But don't assume that just because you're working somewhere that you assume your brand. Now, that being said, there's an importance to your own brand and there's importance to your company brand, but you still work for your company, right? And so you should be a good steward in how you carry and act yourself. So if you're a jerk out there, you're a jerk in the community, I'm trying not to swear, you're bad representation of that, right? But you can represent yourself and not make your company look bad in the same process, right? So when you're thinking about how you're positioning things that you're doing on your own, things that you do for your company, know that those are not the same. You're not the same brand, right? You can still represent your company, you can still put it around content, but you do something on yourself, right? And you can have your own self-identity with that. And so don't just assume that that's not something that is possible, because it needs to happen, right? You need to set up, clear boundaries of what your brand is versus what your company brand is and stuff like that. Now, Jonah Bacon had a great video about, people coming on and building their brand instead of building the company's brand and stuff like that. You can do both. He's very opinionated on it. I'm not arguing with him, probably agreeing with him, but to know that those are two separate things. So don't assume that they're mixed together just because you work there, right? But also don't assume that you can just go expect to have your own personal brand and not take any code of conduct into account when you go do something in another community or even your own community, right? Because if you go out to your own community and you're calling people, jerks and idiots and telling them how stupid they are or whatever it might be, you're probably not representing yourself or your brand very well. So just some food for thought, but understand that even though that you work for a company, it's not part of your identity. You're still an individual. You're an individual who at this time in their lives are working for this company. You can represent them well. They can represent you well, inversely. But the content that you have there, that you're building, can't be for that brand. But the content you do outside of that can be your own personal brand, and that's fine. That's great. In fact, that's a healthy way of kind of creating a separation. I do these small videos. It has nothing to do with work. I like putting them out there because I like talking about the things and answering the questions that people DM me all the time instead of just DMing them back. I put these videos out, but it has nothing to do with my company because we have two separate brands. And I remember that and I keep that up. So every once in a while, every community needs to just a reminder that your brand and your company's brand are not effectively the same thing. Let me know what you think in the comments, and hit subscribe if you want to hear more about community, DevRel, evangelism, all that stuff that we talk about. And we'll see you guys also in the community.